I don't know. Go out in the. I mean, how many inches did you get? You're farther north. You had to get around like over a foot, right?
Yeah, we got over a foot, but I mean, it wasn't. I didn't have to turn to Bilbo Baggins over here. I didn't have to grab my Hobbit cloak.
Going on a journey.
Make sure I pack my breakfast, pack a lunch, and
to get the boots on and all that stuff.
Get my walking stick. Honey, I'll be back. I'm going to get the wood.
Take a salami with you.
The perilous journey.
Oh.
No, it's right in the it's right there in the what do you like? We have like a back porch. It's like 4 feet. Grab it.
That's not so bad. I have it away from my house a little bit. Yeah, and I have to go down the stairs and go there. Well, once something bad happens, you'll learn. Gotcha. Once you get termites or something like that.
Right.
But everyone has to learn.
Right. Well,
okay. And so I go out a little bit, and if I don't have to be out in the elements longer than I have to be, then I'll go out and get wood earlier.
Okay.
So do you have a shovel or a snowblower, or do you just wait and let it all melt?
I remember that there was a shovel left by the previous owners, and I went into the garage to get it, and when I picked it up, I realized this shovel's broken. And I was like, well, I guess that's why they left it. Luckily, there was another shovel. I had to stretch this story out, but there was another shovel that ended up being worked just fine, and I was able to shovel for 2 hours straight and wake up this morning incredibly sore. But you know what? I'm happy with my shoveling, because when I shovel, I don't do that. Oh, is my walkway walkable? Like I don't like it when people do that narrow path to say, all right, I've shoveled the sidewalk in front of my house. Like I do a full on. Any concrete that was exposed prior to the snow gets exposed post snow when Antoine shovels. When I go in, and I make sure that people can walk without having to tiptoe, without having to fear slipping or falling. It's a normal average walk through my sidewalks, and so if that causes me a little bit of back pain, a little bit more muscle ache, then so be it. Because my sidewalk is clean, so I go in.
Well, good for you. You should do that because it's a hazard otherwise. I would say almost don't clear it. Just pack it down, drive your car over it if you weren't going to shovel it down to the surface.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I don't know how your house is, but I have to do my porch, my steps, my walkway to the driveway, and then the sidewalk out.
Yeah, what are you talking about with the car? What do you do with the car?
Well, your driveway, right? You could just drive your car up and down.
Now,
I don't think
the
that's
driveway.
Some people do, but to pack it so that it's not slippery. But I do clear it out. Now, I have a snowblower, so I
Cheater.
Tell you, I just have other things to do. I also don't use flint and rocks and wood to light my place. I use a lighter and starters.
My house is freezing. My driveway isn't clear.
So get a blower. But if you do get a snowblower, if you have a walkway, measure it and make sure you get a snowblower that fits your walkway. That's one bit of advice I'll give you.
I'm not doing it.
Hey, you will. So you will. You get a few snowstorms, you will.
No, it's okay. I love it. I live for this.
Until you throw your back out because you are getting older, and then what are you going to do?
Yeah,
have your wife go out and do it? No.
Well, look. When that day comes, then I know that it's time to pack it in, and I'll.
And you really just want to learn all your lessons the hard way.
I'll work on my. Well, I need to work on my will actually now. That's physically
I've had heart palpitations after 2 hours of shoveling.
That's just responsible at this point. But no, I know. My wife was like, "So are we getting a snowblower yet?" And I was like, "Nope. As long as I can physically get out there and do it, and take pride in the work, I'm going to do it myself." Hey, look. Here's the thing. With global warming, with the changing climate, I mean, I don't know what it is like in Jersey, but in New York, I mean, the snows that we used to get when I was a kid are nowhere near as epic. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like we get like 3 snowstorms.
The blizzard of 96?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The blizzard of 96, exactly. So I'm saying maybe we're due for another blizzard, I don't know, but it snows like this. It snows for a night. It's done the next day, and then it's not going to snow again for like a couple of weeks.
And usually within a day or so, it's back up to 60. It rains, whatever it is, and it's all gone. The problem is that like my wife has to go to work the next day. I'm during all of this, especially working from home, but I got to make sure her car's clear and the walkway's good and the driveway's good. So I got to get out there regardless of the weather that's proceeding. But what I would say to you is, don't be a fool. Go get your snowblower if you can get one. And it sounds like you don't have salt, like ice melt.
I have salt.
Okay. So then don't be so.
It's pet food.
Don't make it. Yeah, that's fine. Ice melt, but don't make it sound like you're digging down with your shovel down to the surface. You're probably shoveling down to like to the surface / the ice. You're not hopefully chipping away because that's a waste of time. Then you put your salt down, and that does the work for you, and you can shovel out the slush afterwards.
Look,
if you're doing it any other way,
I don't know what to tell you. The way I do it,
wasting your time.
The way I do it is It
sounds like a driveway. It sounds like a sidewalk shouldn't take you 2 hours. Is what I'm getting at.
Well, do it all by yourself, and I mean,
yeah,
it still took 2 hours.
You keep doing this, primeval. It's like you move out to quote unquote rural New Jersey, which is North Jersey. So I know New Jersey knows it's not rural, but you move out to here from the city, and you just refuse to use modern technology.
I just don't believe it has a place out here. I think that I'm trying to be.
Did you bring out an oil lantern or kerosene lantern to light your way?
Yeah, I did. And I
with that magnifying glass on the front of it.
I had a stake that I put in the ground, and then I nailed a nail into it, and then I hung the lantern just to give me enough light so I could work in the wee hours of the morning.
Oh,
got the snow up. I mean, look, I do look, but this didn't lead me into a pet peeve, and I didn't have a chance to look it up. So I'm going off of memory at this point, and maybe as you're talking, I'll try to pull something up to see which countries do this. But the hardest part, what took me the longest, was clearing out my driveway, and I because I was out there early, I cleared out my driveway and I cleared out my neighbor's driveway. But it's because the snowplows pack in basically snow from God knows where. And it just like, if you don't get out there fast enough, it starts turning into ice, and then you just gotta like pick at it to get your.
Then you got to clear it again because they come in and block you in again. Yeah,
exactly right. And I'm like, this is such an archaic method of getting rid of snow. And not only
says the guy that's not using a snowblower. Go ahead.
Look.
Continue.
Individual, yeah. Well, look, an individual has a right to whatever archaic means he feels fit, or he or she, or as you self-identify, feels fit to clear your own snow. But when we're talking about mass snow clearing, we're talking about something on a municipal scale, bestowed from the city, we should be investing in better technology than these old school snowblowers. And the reason I'm talking about this is because, I mean, the thing is, I'm pretty sure
there's streets. What are you talking about?
Well, there are heaters. There are like snow heaters, which is not the name. That's why I wanted to look it up, because there's a new type of snowblower that is implemented, and I think it's mostly the northern countries, not like Nordic countries, not northern, but like I think like Denmark has them, and Sweden, which is an easier way to manage your snow, because instead of piling it onto the side and creating
where you want the money going, you get snowstorms like once a year, twice a year.
Absolutely.
You want state-of-the-art snow melt technology.
Hold on. First of all, it's not state-of-the-art. Just again,
dude, I can. Teachers have to buy their own crayons and pencils, and you want like state-of-the-art snowblowers. You won't even use your own snowblower, but you want the city to precipitate or whatever the term is.
No, because we have to advance. Look, as a society, we are so behind. Just because you
priorities, dude.
First of all, it's not it's not either or. In fact, there's a good argumentation for that kind of argument where just because you bought advanced snowblowers doesn't mean that all of a sudden teachers don't get books. First of all, teachers
priorities. Listen, I'm all for the snowblower thing.
Teachers already don't have books, and the fact that the snowblowers are...
We're just going to, they're a lost cause. They're a lost cause. We're going to go straight to the snowblowers.
They're counting... Look, education, it's never going to happen. Here's something we can actually fix.
Maybe if the kids were educated, then we'd actually get our streets cleared in an appropriate manner.
First of all, aren't there there are counties, I don't know if there are counties in Jersey, but I know there are counties in more rural areas where the snowblow team is basically a bunch of Ford pickup trucks, and they just attach like the whatever.
You'll have good Samaritans who actually own this, whether they do it on the side or whatever, but they'll do their neighborhoods for free. Your landscapers, if you have one, will offer that surface, and
so they do
sometimes
that in
it'll be
Jersey too.
complimentary.
They do that in Jersey too, then.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
No one around here is doing that.
Yeah, because apparently.
Well, I mean, we still live in a modicum of like
you city folk.
Yeah, like
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I thought it was really nice. You mentioned what stuck out to me is you shoveled your neighbor's driveway. I don't know what spurred that. If that was just you being a nice guy, or there's some type of agreement worked out there.
No, there's no agreement worked out there. I just thought, if I'm out there, it's like I just felt like it's.
Is that why it took 2 hours?
Well, I just feel like you feel like such a look.
Wait till you get a snowblower, which you will get. But wait till you get a snowblower and you see some other poor sap shoveling by hand, and he waves to you, and you're like, "Dude, do I really have to lend this guy my snowblower right now?" Or do you have to go over and do it for him?
Apparently, it creates a lot of reciprocity because I have another neighbor who basically has 2 people on either side of him that have snowblowers, and they snowblow his sidewalk out of like the niceness of their heart, and that's a whole nother story. I don't really give a crap about what personal people want to do. I mean, each individual person, whether you want to blow your snow, whatever, I don't care what you want to do with your snow. I'm talking about wide scale, getting rid of snow off of the streets so that you have clear lanes for traffic, and people can still park, and people can get to where they want to go without having to worry about ice and all sorts of hazard that as a result of packing snow into various parts of neighborhoods. And I'm saying if you melt it instead, then it allows you to have a greater control over how you manipulate the snow and where you get to put the snow and what have you, as opposed to this just hodgepodge of snow being built up and building all these ice walls on every sidewalk, which is just, to me, is just, I don't know. It's to me, it's just insane. It's insane that we still do it. My point is, there's a better way to go about it.
It's nice for the kids. You get a nice mountain to play on.
It's disgusting for the kids. First of all, it's great for the first day until the second day where the snow is all gray and peed on with every Tom, Dick, and Harry's dog. And then you watch these kids out there building and playing in it. First of all, I was like, I thought I left that behind when I left the city, but apparently the snow gets just as black and disgusting out here. The only difference is there isn't a whole bunch of cigarette butts that are lying in it. So that I guess that's helpful, but people have their own backyards to smoke in. But I'm just saying, there is beautification, and beautification can go a long way. I think that we as a society don't put enough emphasis into beautification, don't realize how far that can go in terms of both mental health and actual just health in terms of minimizing any kind of disease or anything from all this dirt that just gets piled up all over the place.
I don't disagree with you. I just think your priorities are misordered. That's all.
Well,
there's other stuff to worry about.
Well, look, it's not an either or, all right? I mean, that's the problem with our society. That's the problem with our society.
Dude, you can't do it all.
Either or. Well, we don't do anything. Well, all right, fine. We don't do anything. So
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
I'm trying to pick something that I think something we can get behind.
It's impulsive what you want to fix. It's not
impulsive.
Wait till you go through
a great article that talks about how amazing it is to have that kind of snow control where you're melting the snow as opposed to piling.
For 1 to 3 times a year, you want them to like manufacture ice sculptures out of the street snow so that, I don't know, you feel better about walking outside your house.
It could do a world of good. It just looks beautiful out here. Look at all this. It's nicer than all this brown, yellow snow that's just piled up and has nowhere to go because
someone should be shaping these mounds. Look at all that potential drinking water piled outside.
If I were a true artist, I would absolutely take advantage of this and start sculpting the snow on my block and just like in front of everyone's house, like create a beautiful sculpture. That would be amazing, actually. That would be so cool for Christmas.
There you go.
Alas, I'm not artistically inclined, and I'm sure somebody will come out and complain that I've messed up the snow that their kids need to play in, which is disgusting anyway. The reason I know it's disgusting because there's literally 2 kids on my corner as we speak right now that have built an igloo out of the gray corner snow, and I'm just like, ugh, children are just disgusting. It's just disgusting.
No, it's ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, well.
They want to be plugged back into the matrix.
All right, so that was my first piece of rant. Was why can't we get heated snowblowers out here?
Why can't we heat the streets? Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't disagree with you. I'm just, yeah. Your example comparison to Norway, I think, says it all. We're not there. That's not our climate, not just yet.
We're not there. We're not there for anyone. There's like you could name anywhere in the world, and we're not there. We just can't do it. We can't do it at all. There are a few stories actually. There's a smaller story. If anyone wanted to look this one up, there's not really much to talk about. I just thought it was cool. There's a zoo. Man, why did I start off with the zoo? But anyway, there is a zoo somewhere in the world. I think it's in Australia that has Tasmanian devils, and they realized that if Tasmanian devils collect enough sunlight, they can essentially become fluorescent. Did you see that story? So there are a few.
I'm going to repeat that back to you. You're telling me that if a Tasmanian devil lays out in the sun,
I don't look. I don't want to say that
glow.
The sun, they glow. Yes, they become fluorescent. Tasmanian devils can become fluorescent
in the way that I'm imagining, like a glow in the dark light.
Yeah, basically, yeah. There's apparently
never heard this.
Well, this is new. No one knew this could happen because apparently Tasmanian devils are primarily nocturnal, but because of however they're being kept in the zoo, it's definitely messed up their circadian clock. And I guess they're absorbing more light than normal. The ultraviolet light. They're absorbing more ultraviolet light than they would in the wild. And they discovered that they're starting to glow. It's kind of cool.
I gotta look this up.
Yeah, look it up.
I gotta look.
I think it was in It was in Natural Geographic. Is that the name of the magazine now?
Tasmanian devil glow in the dark is 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one down when I type in Tasmanian devil. One day ago.
Is it Nat Geo? Is it Nat Geo?
It's all over.
Oh, okay.
I'll look at the NPR one.
Yes, that was a cool.
So yeah. The picture here is its eyes, which looks like it has cataracts.
Yep.
Its teeth, it's like canines, the ones that stick out.
Mm-hmm.
Its pores around its face where its whiskers are.
And its ears.
Nostril and its ears. That's what I'm seeing are glowing.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, cool story though.
Biofluorescent, yeah.
Yeah, if anyone wants to look into that, they can. But that's a cool story. I just feel like it's one of those stories that may not get as much play, but it's just a unique little miracle of nature. Now, the reason this story actually begs into another story. So we could sit here if you want to talk about this a little bit more. I don't know more about this other than
no. I mean, I would love to know what's going on there because I'm not aware of any other mammal doing that. Not to say that I would be.
There are apparently, I think there are 6.
Really?
6. Because the platypus does it. And
get out.
Yep.
Right now, are they all located by or around Australia? Because platypus is native to Australia.
Yeah.
This is Tasmania, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say I think maybe it's around 50% are in Australia, but I think there are some that are not in Australia. Don't quote me on that because you're moving beyond the story scope. I just wanted to put out that story.
Is the 6 said in the story? You just know that.
I think they say 6 in the story. Well, in the Nat Geo story, I think they might actually mention that. I believe it's 6.
Yeah,
but I
don't mention it in NPR. I just searched.
They don't? Okay. But I know that the platypus definitely, and I think there's one more that is in Australia. So I think 3 are in Australia, and I think there might be 3 elsewhere. So yeah.
Oh wait, there are biofluorescent. Yeah, here we go. University of Kansas biologist Leo Smith, an expert in biofluorescence, usually studies fish. He said, though, it's something more commonly found in fish. It's not a first for land mammals, which is news to me. There are biofluorescent platypuses, squirrels, and possums. Nice. So he's labeling 3. This would, I guess, be a 4th, but who knows if there's multiple within those.
Okay.
Wow, man. I didn't know that. I mean, squirrels? Really? Squirrels aren't nocturnal, though.
I don't know about squirrels.
Maybe it's a particular type of squirrel.
Might be.
That's interesting.
But yeah. Biofluorescent mammals. Quite interesting.
Yeah, never knew that. There you go. There's a new wrinkle in your brain. Yeah. Which is something I remember hearing about when I was in elementary school, but never fact-checked.
Oh, a wrinkle in your brain?
When you learn something new, you get a wrinkle in your brain?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not true.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right?
Sounds like something you tell children.
I keep saying it, though.
Well, we like to lie to children. So.
It's the season.
All right. So the other thing is, now that we're still on the topic of biofluorescent, there was another story about scientists that have made a breakthrough in the ability to manipulate any type of tree to become fluorescent. And what they're basically the end goal of this type of, have you heard about this?
I've heard this. So this isn't, unless it's something new, I've heard of this. Okay. But go ahead, go on.
No, it's, I think they're just, maybe it's another story that's updating on how they're progressing in terms of, I guess they've hit another milestone in their ability to manipulate. as they're trying, basically want to replace street lamps with trees. So they want to be able to light up trees to the extent that they could, instead of having to use lamps or whatever we use, like street lights and what have you. You could just plant more trees, which would yeah.
I think that's
never
amazing.
bad to have more trees. So
I love that. Cool.
Yeah,
I love that, to have ambient light.
Yes.
Trees, yeah. To just lighting up what we need. I don't know what that does for the tree in terms of like attracting insects to it and all that. I don't know. Obviously that could be a pest.
No, that's true.
But
that's true.
I love the idea of. I hate like direct light, even in a home. Having exposure directly to a light bulb.
Yeah, harkening back to our discussion on how I'm like, it's dangerous out here without enough light.
Well, that's something different. I mean, even within a home, I love it when you have like a light that's either shining off a wall or it's shaded in some way so that you're not directly exposed to the light bulb, because it's harsh. It's a silly thing, but it's just my preference if I can have it. But when you walk outside, you have all of this light beaming down and you're walking in and out of the beams and it's all very bright. And I love the idea of having this softer glow that kind of just guides you to where you're supposed to go. So back to your idea of beautification, the environment should be manipulated to guide you through it, and having it lit in this way would go a long way to achieving that. So no, I actually love the idea, as long as it's what would be the term, ecologically friendly, as long as it's good for the trees, neutral for the trees at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool though.
I mean,
I really like that.
Mm-hmm. We're in agreement. We for once we're in a complete agreement that I was actually afraid that you were going to be annoyed at looking at a forest of lit up like Christmas trees and just being like, this is destroying my ability to see the stars. I mean, I felt like you were gonna I have some issue with it.
I actually differ. So I've given, I don't know how to word this, but I've actually, like, for whatever reason, have thought about plant usage in a way that, like, I feel like it's not
before or after we legalized.
So I like, let me try and just collect my thoughts, because you're kind of putting me, or I'm putting myself on the spot. But what I basically have thought about is, we grow these plants, we cut them, we burn them, we build things with them. And I always wondered if there is just other ways to use these things that just, are so plentiful and grow from the ground, literally. Right? People say it doesn't grow on trees, enter whatever, or insert whatever. And these things, how do we use trees, these trees that are just everywhere, these plants? So lighting away would be one way. And I was always wondering, like, what if you were to be able to manipulate their growth or their genetic composition in itself, so that they were providing fruits of all kind or some type of edibles that would benefit us, so that the yield was better, the variety was better. You would have one tree that kind of did everything in a sense. You could manipulate the growth to provide dwellings, living dwellings that would be enormous in a sense. You think of a sequoia or a redwood. Now, whether that's like binding a bunch together as some of them twist to form larger structures, or you just have ones that are just truly larger. I don't know, just things that would be more ecologically friendly, more efficient and proficient in the way that we use them. I don't know. It's like weird, like fantastical things that I would think about when it comes to plants specifically. And this is just another way to do it. So no, I'm totally in favor of maximizing the potential of this resource that surrounds us, and the best that we can come up with is to cut it down, burn it, or carve little blocks out of it and build things,
or just clear it.
Yeah, or just clear it,
for
right?
the sake of clearing for farmland,
or make furniture out of it. Like what can we do with its living form, right? The living of it. Why does it always have to be dead when we use it?
No, it's so interesting you're talking about that. I mean, I feel like we're about to get very Henry David Thoreau right now. But having recently started stockpiling all this wood for to burn through the winter for the fireplace, I'm looking at it and I had the exact same thought. I was just staring at it and I was like, why does this have to only be useful dead? Why can't we use this in a more meaningful way while it's alive, aside from mere aesthetics, like just that beautification, just to say, oh, look, it's so lovely that this person has a garden of roses or flowers or whatever. I mean, I personally hate flowers, but why can't it be more than just this is here for a picture, or just so people can walk through with a bunch of butterflies flying around it? Like, why is it there more utilitarian usage when it comes to trees? So yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah, and listen, I love burning fires. The sight of it, the sound of it, the smell of it, the stoking of it. Like, I love every aspect of a fire, but it's incredibly wasteful. The energy isn't efficient at all, and it's not good for you. You're breathing in all the smoke. I mean, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting relationship we have with fire. But going down the rabbit hole a little bit further, I'm sure that someone in the future, if this is still an interest of humans in that time, will be able to manufacture some type of genetically modified tree that sheds firewood in a sense, whether it's its bark or branches that die off and need to be clipped in some way where we can harvest firewood from a living tree without having to destroy it. So, yeah, interesting.
Part of me, I think in my mind's eye, the idea of being is it a horticulturist?
I think so. Yeah, I know what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, the idea of that is always appealing. It's always so interesting. It's like once I guess I have an aversion to it because I was always forced to garden by my grandmother growing up, and the idea of dirt and soil just because of that trauma is incredibly nauseating. But the idea, had I not had those traumatic childhood memories, the idea of working with plants, it just seems so almost benevolent. Like it's just something that transcends and is very aspirational. And it's like you're not only doing something good for society by looking for the people who look for cures to diseases and what have you through plants, but also because you're working with nature itself, you're doing some good for the preservation of nature, because everything that you find, for instance, like were we able to get trees to be as fluorescent as street lamps so that they can be replaced, so that we can replace street lamps with trees, you're basically making it so that people want more trees, and it's easier to get more trees into a neighborhood. Like, I mean, I'm upset that there isn't a tree on my lawn. I'm talking to my wife about how we're going to get a tree in my lawn, because I think trees can be so helpful, and people just seem to want to clear them off their property as fast as possible. And I'm like, trees are environmentally sound. It's like when you have trees, you use less water on your grass. But you have to. It's a balance you have to seek. But trees are incredibly helpful to basically make sure that you're not wasting other resources, because trees can provide that kind of shelter, that kind of nourishment to your to like the environmental aesthetic of your own home.
And I think
there's a lot to it.
There's into it. And obviously there are different types of trees that people like. You have your more ornamental or flowering trees, and then it's hard to compare that to some of maybe the more evergreens that aren't as pleasing to look at, but they do stay green all year round. But I really like, even in addition to what you had said about lighting the way, is if you could light up any tree, then that turns everything ornamental in a sense. And even your big, bulky, evergreen trees could become really beautiful. When you think about all the pine needles, as annoying as they are, if you have to clean them up every year, which I did have to do in my previous home, and I hated it. But imagining those all lighting up, all those little pine needles everywhere, and the pine cones and such, that could be actually really striking at night. So that could just transform the perspective, however you want to look at it, of how a tree would be viewed and which ones would be beautiful versus not. It wouldn't just be the flowering trees were prized over all others, is I guess what I'm getting at. It would add a new dimension to it. So yeah, anyway.
Do you know the origins of the Christmas tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like in terms of pagan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying it's similar. You're honoring the one thing that lives through the winter. So.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting concept, although we chop down our Christmas trees, so it's kind of ironic in that way.
Yeah, but you still want them to.
I honor this thing that can survive by killing it.
By killing it. There's something more.
Kill the survivor. Yeah.
Sorry, you also reminded me. There's that scene in Hook. Do you remember when the Lost Boys, when they first are reintroduced to Robin Williams as a agent Peter Pan, they keep calling him a pirate, and they're all like, kill the pirate, and then he turns around, he's like, I'm not a pirate, I'm a lawyer. And then this one kid just yells out, kill the lawyer. He's like, I'm not that kind of lawyer. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, Robin Williams, he will be missed.
What a great actor. So I have a running list of things, and yeah, we're not going to get to it all. And we can go back and forth if you have other ones.
No, yeah, go for
it. But this one was interesting. You'll roll your eyes. So Business Insider, you know what they're known for on this pod, and that's Elon. But so it's interesting because now this is a competitor.
Okay.
So apparently, the European Union is set up to launch their own satellite constellation that would rival SpaceX's Starlink.
Okay.
So a couple bullets here. Europe is planning to build a new satellite constellation, reportedly costing 6 billion euros, roughly $7.3 billion US, that would work in a similar way to SpaceX's Starlink. The constellation will beam internet access to European citizens, notably those in isolated areas, and allow governments to communicate securely. European Union officials have signed off on a study for low Earth orbit constellation, which is due to take place at the start of 2021. And Elon Musk has said that SpaceX's internet satellite beta could reach Europe by February 2021. So a little bit of competition there and rivalry. But I thought it was interesting that, this isn't a company, this is the European Union, which is such a difference when you think about social structures in Europe versus the US, where you have a commercial entity in the US doing this, and then you have the European Union doing it for the collection of countries they represent on their continent. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of an interesting take. I thought, even though it's Elon related, that it would be something interesting for you to comment on, given that dynamic of, government responsibility versus, if the European Union is considered that, which I believe you would, right? A government entity in that sense. Yeah, versus a private enterprise in the US doing it.
I think it's fantastic they're doing this. It's odd to have. It's one thing, when the original space race was going on under Kennedy, you had two. It was Russia and the U.S. but you had two governing, or two national nationalistic pride nations that were going at it, and I think that was that's a 1-to-1, and so it's that. It's interesting. It's just so bizarre to think of a nation state going up against a commercial, like a private enterprise. It's throwing me for a loop just thinking about it, to be honest with you. And I don't know if listeners are going to be able to get on this journey with me, but I just think that it's has it ever happened before? That's what I'm trying to think. Like, has this ever happened before in anything? Really?
What do you mean? Has what happened before?
Where a nation, like a nation state or a group of nations, came together for a goal, and then we're in direct competition with a private corporation elsewhere outside of those nations. Has this ever happened before?
Well,
on this grand scale.
What else does the European Union do? And not in a stupid sense where obvious, but what would they venture into other than this that the private industry would play in as well? What are some common sandboxes?
I don't think
you have transportation, you have security, you have
but what do we I'm trying to think. What is the privatization of, there's no international rail, right? I guess maybe the closest to this is similar to the airline industry, right? Because there are a few national airlines, right? There aren't many left, but I think is British Airways privately owned, or is that still sort of?
I don't know.
We'd have to look into that. But it's not the same because they're all still operating. Do you think would this be a head-to-head kind of thing, or?
Is there like any kind of pipeline that the European Union would own versus like an oil company here or some type of refinery here?
Well, there are Russia owns pipelines that I think are nation state.
But that's not the same, because you're talking about the European Union versus a single nation.
Well,
and I think that was kind of more your point, because then you have plenty of things that are nationalized within other countries that private industries do.
I know. I guess I'm trying to get to that. This is, to me, I feel this is a little unprecedented because we're in space, and space is the next frontier, and it's interesting to go head to head in that capacity, because it's sort of like, well, if the U.S. were to try to intervene in any way, shape, or form to protect, like to come to Elon's rescue, or to protect our interest in what Elon is doing, that automatically would take Elon from being a private entity to being basically an arm of the American nation state, right? So,
well, how do you compete with the EU subsidizing? It's not even subsidizing; they're doing it. How does Elon compete? Well, who says the U.S. will come to Elon's aid unless they get a piece of his pie?
They might, right? I'm just saying, but that takes it again. If we intervened in any way, shape, or form, it would nullify the privateness of what Elon's trying to do. It would then become, Elon would essentially just be like an arm of NASA.
Yeah, no, you kind of went a level deeper, which I like. Is that, all right? So you have these two entities doing it, but how would that actually play out competitively?
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you compete? That's what's so weird and crazy about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in a situation where it's like too big to fail type argument, right? It's not all infiltrating where things are going to collapse if all of a sudden Elon's companies went under.
Yeah.
Unless he somehow, because it's getting, he's not even exclusive with NASA or the government in any way. Because they have Boeing, they have Blue Origin, which is a story I wanted to get into later. So there's so many other vendors, if you will, or contractors that the U.S. government could use. Yeah, I just don't know. When push comes to shove, and Elon is going up against the EU. First of all, I don't know, like, the quote-unquote GDP or the value of the EU in comparison to the revenue that Elon collectively has under his belt. And if he can even move around money between entities, from Tesla to Starlink to Neuralink to whatever else he's working on, if that's even a thing. I probably think it would be.
I think the reason he's created all these separate entities is that,
so he can't be a monopoly, and he can't be broken up in that way.
It could be the monopoly thing. I don't know if any tech person is particularly afraid of the DOJ at this point in time, but I think it's more about a liability issue. So that if Starlink launches something that blows up with 60 people inside of it, and its shares and everything just tanks, it doesn't drag Tesla and everything else down with it. I think that's why these things are broken up to be so separate.
Yeah, I wonder how he, like, can he compete? Because it's hard to imagine the entire EU. You would think it's a formidable competitor with all of those countries behind it. I mean, what stops them from just saying, thanks, Elon, for the idea, and we're going to steamroll you over? Because why would they stay contained to the EU? Why wouldn't they export this service to the world? And, talk about the U.S. government being able to have leverage over Elon. They could just say, we're not going to use SpaceX unless you do something with your Starlink.
Could
for
be.
us.
Could
I don't know.
Could strong arm him. I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, it does remind me a little bit of all the. Oh, go for it.
I was going to say, it changes the dynamic for our last episode when we were talking about his expansion onto Mars and how he referenced us as terrestrial, and the way that he could, like, venture past the outreach of the earthly governments.
Yeah, Federation.
Now all of a sudden there's a petition here.
Yeah.
I mean, what if the EU just starts doing everything Elon's doing?
They go and take Mars. There's nothing he could do about it. Nothing anyone can really do about it.
That's interesting.
Not unless Elon wanted to become again, unless he wanted that backing of his adopted nation state. So.
Yeah,
but I think there's. I mean, look, there's going to be I think there's vested interest for the U.S. not to allow themselves to be eclipsed in the space race. And I was going to use the term for better or worse. That's so flippant because Trump was so devastating. But the one thing that Trump ideologically was not wrong about was the fact that we needed to return to investing in the space program and doing more in terms of space. I mean, what's that old saying? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, I think that's kind of where he fell into it when it comes to space.
Listen, no one's all bad. I mean, and I don't say that in a way where like even their morality is right. I mean that, listen, out of you do enough things, eventually you'll get something right. And it doesn't even mean that everything you want to do is inherently evil or bad or selfish and or cannot benefit the greater good, even though you're doing it for whatever reasons.
All right.
So I mean, I support any exploration and expansion of our capabilities in space. As long as it's not demonic, but not to kill people or anything. But you know what I mean?
We're not blocking out anybody's sun, right? We're not making massive dishes.
I mean, a space force. It seemed more militaristic in nature, and it seemed like that was more of the primary goal. I probably would have preferred an enhancement of NASA, but understanding the reality of other people will militarize space. So, just like everything else, why not be at the forefront of that? So we have a little more say in how it's governed and guided. So it's hard to hate on what he did there, and I'm not even trying to. I think it's probably one of the more positive legacies that he'll have. In the history books, which undoubtedly will look upon him unfavorably. This may be.
I doubt that, but go on.
No, you think they're going to look upon him favorably?
Yeah, I think that the history books, American history books especially, look upon almost all presidents favorably.
I think they forget about the ones, almost like an Egyptian pharaoh erasing his predecessor. You don't learn about the unfavorable presidents, I would argue. The ones that were unpopular, unless it's like a Nixon type thing that's still fresh. But the ones that didn't do well or were outright disliked, you simply just don't learn about them. It's almost like their legacy's erased.
That's true. That's true to an extent. But I mean, because there are certain things that Trump did do, it's too soon. It's too soon to know where the history books will fall on Trump. You're right. He might end up being a footnote between the first black president and whatever comes afterwards. So you're right.
And the most diverse cabinet.
Depends on who's writing these books. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
They're coming out of Texas. It might be a little different, but it's going to be interesting. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. The space race might be the most defining subject of our lifetimes. At least I hope it is, to be honest, because I think there's so much to be done out there, and I think that it always stokes the imagination. And whenever you have a huge investment in space, you also get a huge uptick in children and parents leaning their kids towards STEM education and basically trying to, everyone wanted to be an astronaut. So there's a lot of cool things that are on the back of when you have something like a space race. So this is a new space race. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever have the impact of the moon will on that period of time. I don't know what it would take to get people as jazzed up, energized about going to Mars, even setting up a colony on Mars. I don't know if it's competing entertainment interests or a lack of education that would make this interesting to begin with. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, and I don't know if it's maybe just romanticized. Obviously, I wasn't alive during the space race with Kennedy and the Soviet Union to get to the moon, or to even get into orbit. When you look back at the film reels and the movies and everything, all the art, it seemed like it was a really big deal, and families would crowd around their TVs if they had one to watch it all happen. I just don't see that ever happening to that scale, like adjusted for the population now and the technology people have to watch on their phones or whatever it is. Like, I just don't see that level of enthusiasm, that level of like overwhelming, like, wow, like they had so many moon things that like things were just like made it like architecture, the things that were built, themed things, everything was all like spacey. Like, I just don't see it infiltrating our culture in that way that it did then.
I'm not as cynical as you. In this one,
I hope so. It was area. Like that.
And look, here's the reason why. I can see it's because we haven't done anything that is. Once we do, the International Space Station is probably the closest thing we have to that global initiative of sending that cooperation and working in space. I think, and granted, we'll probably be dead by the point this happens, but I think the first time we do our human maiden voyage with the solar sail ship, which probably will look freaking out of this world amazing. I'm hoping as long as Elon.
It's not going to look like a pirate ship. It's going to be a box with a sail.
I don't want it to be a garbage can with a sail. That's what will happen if Elon gets in charge. But I don't want it to be a whale probe. But I think it could be kick-ass, and I think that there's something we can get together. And look, I mean, this is definitely me shooting for the stars and being incredibly sappy. But I think that if we did a maiden voyage to Mars with a collection of people from around the world, and it's not just scientists and people who are from the military, but if we even got similar to, everyone talks, I think Voyager is unfortunately it's the one that blew up, but it's where they were sending the teachers to space. If we could do something on that scale where you've got some average people, so you can get some human interest stories that are kind of jazzed around it. We're sending a person with a handicap or a person with, I don't know, you just need stories, and you're sending them off to the maiden voyage to Mars. I think that everyone would be on their heels and everyone would be watching. I think that that's something that could take the attention away from whatever distractions are currently here on Earth and kind of unite everyone into that kind of momentous moon landing kind of moment. I honestly do believe that. I just can't imagine why you would not want to watch that. I think that would be it would be the best television out there. I don't know why you wouldn't want to watch it.
No, I'm not. All right. So, well, no, I will say it because we did some pretty cool things recently, even something with Hubble. I mean, it's not like it captivated the American public in a way that the moon landing did. But let's say even if it did, my concern is the attention span. The moon landing and the whole race and all that stuff, again, from the propaganda that we're fed, because I wasn't alive then, right, is that it was captivating. It infiltrated our culture. Everything from like UFO sightings to themed things to shows and movies, like in every way, our art and everything. It infiltrated us and it shifted our culture slightly. Mm-hmm. I don't see that monumental thing happening. I just don't know. It's not new anymore in that sense. It's become normalized with movies and everything. We're like still in the wake of it all almost. Mm-hmm.
It won't be to that extent. So I'll give you that. It will not be. I still think it'll be incredibly impactful, and I think that anyone who's alive and gets to see it will remember that day. But you're right in terms of the length of cultural memory. I don't know if everyone will always be thinking about, oh man, look at those guys who are off to Mars. Like, I wonder what they're doing today, or if they check in, if everyone will want to go to a live feed just to see what's happening. But
I'm with you in terms of I hope that people understand what it means. Mm-hmm. What it means for us as a species, what it means for the research that it's taken to get here. To understand what they're witnessing and how it can change our direction going forward. But
I think
they have to have an interest. They have to have some baseline to begin with.
Well, I'll say one more thing on it. I think that what would get you to that point where it does start to shift the cultural lexicon, like that whole basically the whole idea of nations and being human and what have you, for it to really reverberate is what I'm trying to say in terms of our cultural history. I think we'd have to get to a point where people could envision that either they or their children might be able to join in on the colony, right? So like I'm saying, if we got to a point where we've got this, we're going to create this colony on Mars, we're creating this colony off of the Earth, I think then it'll definitely always start to be in the public consciousness. It'll always come up in conversation. It'll come up in the ways that we create new laws and legislatures, because we'll have to always think about, well, what about the colony on Mars? What about the people on Mars? Like, what about, how does this affect anyone who's going to go to Mars? How do these laws, or how do you know, I think that
maybe if there was equal opportunity in the world,
what I mean.
But I think
I'm just saying, or at least the perception of it. You don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily.
You'll have to test into that, or that you have to test into it or pay into it, and it's not available to everyone. Look, just like people don't even vote now.
Well, I'm just saying, if you get it to that point where people can see themselves or see someone close to them possibly going, I think that you'll get that that shift that we're talking about here, where movies and news and fiction and book, like everything will start incorporating the ideas of having a colony off the world, and how that, and it'll affect religion, it'll affect a lot of things, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if it would take competition, because again, I'm not around when the space race happened, and I'm curious to see if Kennedy or some other president without the USSR as a factor saying, I want to go to the moon, and if everyone would have rallied around it in the same way. And so it was an existential threat to us, at least that's probably how it was pitched to the American people, that may have rallied, because, geez, as we see even with the last 4 years, it's all about hating on someone. That's kind of what gets people energized for whatever reason. We're very primitive in that way. It's like this back door into our psyche. And so I wonder if it takes another country to not only outdo us, but for the danger of that to be presented to us in a way that, hurts people's pride or hurts people's fantasy about what America is. I wonder if it takes that competition to stoke the fire of interest.
So basically you're saying we'll get interested once there's the first space war.
Yeah, no, it's for another country to basically say, not only are we doing this first, but you will be subservient to us when we succeed, type thing.
Well, I hope it doesn't get to that.
Well, I'm pretty sure it will.
Come on. I don't know.
But wasn't that what the space race was originally?
Yeah, but that's,
you have Sputnik flying around and everyone thinks that they're being spied on or whatever. Yeah. Isn't that kind of?
I don't know. I'm hoping.
Do you think we would have
evolved a little bit beyond that?
Do you think we would have? Do you think it would have been the way that it was if we were solely going at it alone and there was no competition?
Absolutely not. Yeah, so? No. The competition was everything. But it doesn't mean that we have to continue in that vein. It doesn't mean that everything we do has to be based on some sort of competitive necessity to survive.
Yeah, because that's not what we are as a species, is competitive. Yeah.
Well, we might be able to do something else. I don't know.
Maybe we'll turn into Vulcans someday, but until then, we're Homo sapiens.
We have to prove that we deserve the attention of the alien species that monitor
our reptilian overlords. We have to make a good first impression.
Yes, we have to prove that we're worthy of their love.
I think about that sometimes. So you spoke about Trump. I was going to transition earlier, but
let's do it.
But this is interesting. So there's two things on Trump that I wanted to cover, and I can't wait till I never have to mention his name again. But the first part is somewhat related to the idea of our lottery thing, where, should we have a lottery where an ordinary person can be part of a historically momentous event or occasion and have their name written into the history books, right? Isn't that super cool? I mean, an example of that is the first, it was the first woman, I think, or a person, but it happened to be a woman in the U.S. to get the COVID vaccine. So, like, her name will be written in the history books, right? Something like that.
I thought it was in the UK. Was it the first person?
Well, there's in the world, I think, but then it was someone in the U.S. And that's not a lottery in a sense, I guess, but that kind of thing where a normal person entered into the history books. So that whole idea that we were talking about in a previous episode. So not as dramatic, but I was like, wow, is this a thing? Do people normally do this? It's a BBC article, and the title is Atlantic City to auction off demolition of former Trump casino. And basically, they're auctioning off the person who pushes down on that T-lever dynamite box to blow up his casino. And I was like, let's just try and remove Trump from the equation on this. But I was like, wow, they're actually doing it. Someone is doing it. They're auctioning off these tasks to normal people.
And I just money.
I mean, let's just put aside the bankruptcy of Atlantic City
and corruption
and the fact that it's a Trump casino, and the idea that like that's an example of a way that you can have a lottery.
We did it, everyone. It's a lottery to blow up a building.
I'm not gonna say they listened to our podcast and they stole our idea.
I'm not gonna look. I mean, I think you could do this the world over if you're always auctioning off buildings to be exploded. There's always going to be someone.
I mean, but how cool is that? Listen, I would pay $1 to enter in that lottery to blow a building up. I think that's pretty cool.
I'm glad to know that. It's good to know.
What, you don't? Are you
well,
telling
first of all,
me that you don't like?
Does that device actually still do it anymore, or is it more like you push it, it's ceremonial, and then there's a guy with a button,
and it's not even the only button on the board. It's like one button, and he's like, "Listen, these 39 buttons don't do everything. You got to hit this one, hit this button. And they're all the same color. It's not even like the red button on there.
Right.
I'm sure it's all the same.
Okay.
Geez, it's probably an app for that now.
Probably.
You don't even get the tactile feel of pushing the button in and having that click. It's just hitting a touch screen.
Yeah, that's right. You swipe up.
Yeah, exactly.
You swipe down and the building comes down.
Yeah. No, up. Inversion.
Oh, right. Inverting controls.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know where to go from there. Sure, lotteries work when you get the blow crap up. I don't know where to go. All right. Sounds awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
I like it. I thought it was cool. The first thing I was like, oh my God, they're doing it. That's so awesome. Keep doing these lotteries to where people can do these cool things. I love it.
Oh, man.
I don't know where the money's going. So that's another thing.
Like but a segue into some sort of dystopian novel where it's like
you said that last time.
It is. It's just
everything can be. Everything can be.
Everything's a lottery system. You just get a lottery to do anything because there's no point in living. Nothing. There's nothing to hope for aside from being picked in the lottery to do something cool.
Anyway, the other Trump thing, which I didn't even want to bring up, but it just keeps blowing my mind. It just blows my mind that this was. Did you hear about the president's Twitter account being hacked and what his password was?
Yes.
MAGA 2020 exclamation point. Are you kidding me? You know what popped into my head?
What?
Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Spaceballs and
That's
Mel
right.
Brooks, the president's luggage thing. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4? Like, are you kidding me? I blew my mind. I can't believe that comparison hasn't even been made yet. Or it may have been. I just didn't see it. But like, are you kidding me? I got nothing.
We never will have anything. This is a once in a lifetime presidential cabinet and president and
MAGA 2020 exclamation point on his Twitter account. And it took the guy 5 tries to get it.
Master sleuth. He was a master hacker.
And they're trying to like prosecute him, like which actually was interesting because I didn't initially consider that a hack. I guess your attempt to infiltrate anyone's account, even if their password is 1, 2, 3, 4, is a hack. And yeah, ethically you shouldn't do that. But like at some point, I mean, geez, man.
You get off.
It might if his password was password. It's the only other thing that could have been more obvious, which was probably like attempt number 1. Because to even think that it would be MAGA 2020, to even think that he would do that, like what does that say about the intellectual capacity of our president, where a guy who is hacking, and maybe this is some type of methodology that all hackers do, I don't know, I'm really ignorant, so maybe this is very elementary, like of course you would start with this, with the ultra obvious. But for me, to start off at this level to say, try Ivanka, try Mar-a-Lago, try password,
yes,
and then try MAGA 2020 exclamation point. Like, I don't know. What are we looking at here?
I got nothing. It's you stumped me again. The thing is, I think the exclamation mark is probably only there because Twitter might have required it or requires some sort of like non.
Yeah, he had to do a capital letter and a special character, and a number and an alphanumeric number. And he's like MAGA 2020 exclamation point. Capital M seems good to me.
Done.
God.
I got nothing. This is who that man was. What might be comforting is that he is a buffoon from start to finish. Like, there's not one part of him that you're going to get this surprise of like, wow, that was different from what I expected. It's like every aspect of that man's life, he lived it to the fullest in that little warped vein of between utter stupidity and just and brilliant dumb luck, and that's just where we're just gonna have to cap it. Just go.
It's with that. Not. I mean, it's his campaign slogan. It's not even like what school did he go to?
Which one? He went to
I don't know, a
Business,
school.
Which is
Wharton. It's not even like Wharton graduation year or a Wharton lacrosse team or whatever. Like,
nope.
Wharton business. It's not something in the past. It's so current. And it's blown. Like, there's so many layers of stupidity here, and an exclamation point. He didn't even pick like a parenthesis or something. Like, an exclamation point is what he did. I don't know. It could have been a % sign. It's all so obvious.
Trump's tombstone will definitely say something to the effect of,
"This is a tombstone."
Exclamation
point. Exclamation point. I died. Sad.
Sad.
I got nothing. What is going on here? Oh my God.
Oh man. He truly he is a beast all onto himself, my friend.
I don't know. I feel like people rolled their eyes at that whole password thing, and I feel like it deserves more attention because of just how dumb it was.
I think it would get more attention were he have to have won re-election. I think the fact that he is on the outs is definitely starting to.
That's true.
I just want him out. I just don't care anymore. And that's the thing. You just hear these things, and you're just like, he can't leave fast enough. The damage that he is doing on the way out is like bull in a china shop levels, and no one wants to know anything. No one wants to hear anything. They just want him out and to move on with the Biden administration at this point. And I think that's why you're not hearing a lot more about it, and that's why there aren't a lot of Spaceball references, although there should be quite a few Spaceball references. But yeah, I think this man is he is like a hobo in the rearview mirror. People who have just hit the gas and they just want to speed off as fast as possible. That's all.
It's a fair point. Okay. So next up on the list, Reuters article. Switch it to science a little bit, trying to solve the hunger crisis that regardless of how many GMO things we come up with, we still seem to not be able to help and solve this. And I'd be curious to know like where we were 20 years ago, where we are now, the advancements that have gotten us to that point, and how much more, like how far from the finish line are we where we don't have people starving in this world.
Can you? So what's the?
So the Reuters article, and I'm jumping to conclusions to a bit, or jumping ahead of what the downstream impact of this story will have. But this Reuters article is titled, "Thai researcher wonders if chicken feathers on the menu might fly." And basically what it means, or what it's getting at, is this London-based student is basically trying to figure out a new food source. And apparently there are 2.3 million tons of feathers, chicken feathers, being dumped annually. And what he's figured out is that he's seeking funding to convert the nutrient component found in feathers into a powder that can be transformed into a lean, protein-rich source of edible food. So basically turning chicken feathers into food. And whether it's feasible, whether it's, it's kind of like upcycling, no part of the animal goes to waste type thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what 2.3 million tons equates to into this powder. If it's like only producing, and it would be ridiculous here, a tablespoon, it's not going to help anybody. Yeah. But it led me to the first thought that popped into my mind is cool, but why is it needed in terms of it's not, but like, in like a rhetorical sense, why is this still needed? Like, being able to use the chicken feathers for something in itself, because we're not using them for anything, I understand. But trying to help with hunger, I just kind of was like, we haven't done that yet. Like, we haven't figured that out collectively with all of the charitable contributions that rich countries make. Like, this is still needed, or is it simply, no, we can do it, and we should, because it's just it's another way not to waste. And if we can supplement protein in that way, then maybe the other ways of getting protein, whether they're growing something, we can eliminate the need for fields, even though it's kind of the opposite direction. We probably want more plants instead of animals in this sense. But if the animal feathers are being generated and discarded anyway, then it might as well put them to good use. So my head went in a bunch of different directions, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And I don't want to diminish. I mean, I think it's fantastic this young man is trying to do this, and I think it is a positive step forward with the conditions and situation that we find ourselves in. But I don't know. It kind of made me sad in the sense that it was needed.
Yeah, there are starving people in this world. The numbers do not lie on that front. I think it's a.
And I want to be fair, because I took it to it before you start, and I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
The article itself doesn't go into that, and I don't know. I imagined that that's where it would go to, but what this article is talking about is more like restaurants using it, and it's like ways that the restaurants will use it. So I mean, I would say go read the article and look for yourself, but it's a way to supplement, I guess. I can't say animal, but like meat, protein, even though it's still being generated from an animal in a sense. Yeah. I don't know if it's like just like molting feathers. They're just picking them up. But it's there are restaurants, I guess. The last quote in here is from a Michelin star restaurant chef, maybe saying, I plan to approach the zero waste restaurants first, or something like that.
No.
What's that?
It wasn't something like that. It wasn't. I will not use this aberration. It was just.
No, I want to say
that's how I imagine a Michelin star chef. That's how he talks. That's how I imagine his vocal, his cadence and his vocal flow would go.
No, it may not have been a Michelin star chef. I'm scanning this article quickly, but basically they're looking for plant-based substitutes for meat and zero waste restaurants where I guess no part of the animal goes unused, and this aligns with those missions.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure it does. Yeah.
Or that mission, not the plant-based stuff. But I don't know.
I don't know. I think I don't
know what to make of it.
It's a gray area. Because it's an interesting innovation. There's nothing. I think that we can all agree on that. I'm always for. It's always cool to see anyone making some inroads into new technology, especially food technology. Because again, one more food source means that maybe finally food will be so cheap and abundant, even though it already is incredibly cheap and abundant. It's just that it's scaled to the nations that can afford it versus the nations that cannot. But it is definitely getting to a point where, or at least it should be. And I mean, I don't want to overspeak here, but I do believe there's enough food on this planet to feed everyone. I think it's just not a portion.
Well, there's so much waste. Have you ever seen those segments of when like there's like tons of potatoes being dumped, or all the food waste going on in different countries here?
Well, we pay farmers to dump. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So no, I would agree with you. I mean, I don't know if that'll serve everybody, but it's got to make a dent. I would assume that we are fully capable of feeding everyone in this world. I don't know if it's logistics. Like, all right, the farmers, we're paying them to dump, but
yeah,
like, why not pay to distribute to those in need?
Well, because I mean, you want to create an element of scarcity so that the price doesn't fall below something that is that you could then make money on.
But why would that happen? Because if people aren't going to buy anyway because they're poor, why would that affect the price? Why wouldn't they just be classified as in need, and then they just get it? Why would that affect the price?
Because we don't give away anything in this country. Why don't we have UBI? Because of this this puritanical notion of like you have to, if you didn't work for it, you don't deserve it. I mean, look,
it's interesting that you would say that, really, because arguably rich kids didn't work for anything, but they get it all. So
but the fact
an
that
interesting
you're rich
work
means
ethic
that somebody, I know, but the fact that you're rich means that somebody worked hard enough to get you there, and then once you get to that plateau, and
no one has to work anymore, so then you just get to go back.
Well, now you're the promised land, and once you get to that Garden of Eden, you deserve to be behind those gates, and everyone outside is just available to the flood. All that being said, I think it's interesting to see somebody doing this with meat still, because there's so many alternatives, especially when you're running like the Beyond Meats, and I think there's the Impossible Burger. There's so many other plant-based alternatives at this point that people are investing a lot of technology into. So it's interesting to still see someone trying to use an animal product in this way, because here's the thing: if it is successful, let's say this tastes like gangbusters, it means that you're still propagating the usage of animals in the livestock, like in that livestock ecosystem, right? Like you still need more and more animal husbandry. What do we call them? It's livestock, right? We just say you still have a need for livestock, because they still have to produce these feathers for people to then for this guy to, like, do something with and then turn it back into meat product. And I think the whole point at this point is to have less animals, like to need less chickens, to need less cattle. We want less of these, and therefore you have the true price, which is at a premium, and then most people are eating a diet that is predominantly vegetable based, and then can be offset with a bit of meat, almost like an appetizer or like a dessert or what have you. It's like on a special occasion, the way it used to be. So that's interesting.
I agree with you. I feel like the diets are all out of whack, and that it should be more of an event, if ever, that you would have meat rather than a staple diet. But you're right. It struck me too that it was innovation on the. Are you looking at the next topic I sent you? Yeah, for the listeners, I pinged ahead just now, Antoine, the next topic. It's weird, so we'll get to it in a minute. And I see his face on our pod right now, and it's distracting me. No pun intended. You'll know why in a second. It surprised me that there was innovation being had in the animal industry. Initially, I would say my first reaction was, "Wow, why are we innovating in animal slaughter in that way, to instead of investing our money into plants,
right?
Or lab grown meat or something like that, where we weren't taking life." And then my immediate counter to that was, but the reality is this is happening, and until it doesn't, that's kind of where we find ourselves.
Right. I mean, this is very much in the vein of we're making the best of a bad situation. It just still it doesn't feel great, but I completely get why you'd want to do this, because basically it's sort of admitting, look, livestock is here to stay. Huge chicken farms where all these chickens are cooped up and leaving feathers all over the place that could basically fill the island of Manhattan is just a reality. And he's like, well, instead of having all these feathers go to waste, let's do something with it. I get it, but I just feel like there's just something. It just doesn't. It never feels right. And here's the thing: there's a difference between the reality, not the reality of the situation, but like this guy's basically doing something incredibly utilitarian, and those of us who are just simply saying, well, wouldn't it be better if we just didn't use as much chickens to begin with? We might be living in the clouds. We might be living in the fantasy, and us just saying don't do this. In the meantime, all these feathers are just going to continue to go to waste as everyone else is just barnstorming, with the pitchfork saying we need to be more vegan, we need to be more vegetarian, but the world isn't. It is moving towards that, but ever so slowly. Exactly. And this is a solution that could actually be making an impact immediately in the situation that we have here. But again, it's so human, right? It's like humans want to always jump to the slippery slope, path of argumentation whenever it's advantageous. And this is the similar one where it's like, but aren't you aren't you further entrenching this thing that we're trying to get rid of? But the truth is he? Because it's like it's already entrenched. It's so entrenched. We're a carnivorous society.
Do we really want to build technology and industry around this thing we're trying to phase out? Like, we're never going to sunset animal slaughter in the way that we want if we keep innovating in that space. And even though it's doing good because we find ourselves in that reality, wouldn't we usher the end in sooner if we said no more innovation? Like, no more innovation. We're only going to innovate in the other area that we want to get into so that it will eclipse where we find ourselves now. So, society will be forced to go the other way.
But it's the same argument we use towards renewable energies. It's the exact same argument that is used, and yet we still find ourselves using coal and all sorts of other dirty energy sources, as opposed to investing in pure wind, water, and solar powered energy sources, right? I mean, I'm just saying it's a very similar vein because we keep talking about it. We can grandstand about this till the cows come home. I mean, every administration is going to face it, and yet we still find ourselves in the same place. And the people who make the most inroads are the people who are doing like carbon capture, as opposed to eliminating using the sources that create carbon. Everyone's like, well, let's just capture it.
We build the case that it's not as bad as it used to be.
Exactly. And that's the more realistic case that gets put forward and gets voted on, right? As opposed to, how about we just abandon all of this and just go over to pushing everyone into a completely new industry, right? So I mean, it's like, what is the more realistic option? And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's the people who live in the dream, right? The thing is, I will say I'm one of those people. I live in the dream, but it's not the reality. The reality is carbon capture and chicken feathers. That's the reality.
It is. Reality is that renewable energy at the moment is more expensive, and you don't get as much out of it as you do with fossil fuels, at least for most consumers.
Right, but the dreamers believe if you subsidize it and you give enough incentives towards it, eventually it becomes the norm, and it becomes
eventually the technology will get there. I mean, you're asking the industry to catch up in 10 years what's been going on for hundreds, right? The Industrial Revolution. So it's almost unreasonable to say, well, it's not there yet. Well, yeah, how could it be? How much time did the other industry have to mature? Right. And similar with the plant versus animal. Except with the animal, it's unique because they're alive. They're living beings with emotion and life.
No, you make a good point. You make a good point, actually. That if we took that into consideration, there is that whole ethical debate about the soul of the animal. I mean, I don't want to use the word soul, but in terms of if animals were given similar rights to what we enjoy, then can we, in good conscience, continue the way in which that we farm them out for food source if they had their own rights? So I mean, there's
well, you know what. So this is something I've thought about before. Another one of my rabbit hole things when I have nothing better to do. So we're Homo sapiens, right? But back in the day, there were a few different types of primates that could walk around and communicate and think, right? And have their own form of culture. At least that's what the scientists will tell us.
Right. That's okay.
Right. So
the ones we didn't kill off.
Yeah. Or mate and just form new ones, right? Yeah. So whatever happened. But so what I had thought of one time was, what if, another animal, it doesn't have to be a primate, it could be anything really, emerged from the ocean, emerged from the forest, emerged from the desert, what have you, and, had intelligence to some degree, more than any other animal on Earth, in terms of being able to think abstractly and communicate with its own peoples, so to speak, and then we can somehow form a relationship. So pretty smart, right? On our level to a degree. And then, would we afford them human rights? And then, to your point, because this is what made me think of it, if all it takes is for the animal to be able to say hello, hello, and that's hot, or what, I like that. Like, what is it about communicating that we find so intriguing?
Don't kill me.
Yeah, right? Basically. So once it's that, and then once you have that thought experiment of, I recognize this other animal as being on my level to a degree, just without all the accumulated knowledge, I'm going to afford you my rights now. Yeah. Then you have to ask yourself, is that all that's stopping us from saying all animals have this right is just its ability to say, please don't kill me, even though it may be thinking that, like it,
well, I mean,
it's interesting.
It's an interesting thought experiment, because essentially when an animal gets put on the endangered species list, it's basically us giving it affording it that right of saying, please don't kill me. That's
but it's it's just such a selfish reason. It's so our kids want to be able to see what a whale looks like.
Exactly what I'm just saying, but it is privilege, right? I'm just saying it's the same privilege. We're saying that these animals, for better or worse,
we have right not to kill you.
Yeah, they have the right not to be killed any longer, and then therefore protected. It's not fair. But I'm just saying, in that thought experiment, basically it's the same thing. It's basically being said. We basically say that African elephants can say, "Don't kill me." And so they're being protected as if as if they were on our own level. So it's interesting.
I mean, it goes back to almost that gray wolf thing where it's like, too bad you guys don't know our geopolitical borders. Like, that's right. Too bad you don't know our language, or can't figure it out.
Stop stepping in Wyoming. You'll live longer.
Why don't you learn how to say "mama, dada," and we'd help you out? But unfortunately, can't. Yeah, it's kind of sick in that way, isn't it?
It is a little sick.
We recognize that you're alive. We recognize that you can feel emotion. If you pull a baby away from its mother and it's not human, it still mourns, right? We see that in so many animals, and that's not the only way it shows emotion. So we understand that animals feel this emotion. They get scared, they run, they get angry, they attack. But it's the lack of it being able to actually communicate with us verbally, never mind tears or fright in action, that stops us from affording it human rights. It's kind of sick. It's kind of sick.
It's a little sad when you really think about it in that way. So
it's such a weird coping mechanism that we've given ourselves. Well, they can't speak. Like, I mean,
it's true, because they could do everything else. They could cry, they could whine,
they whimper,
fear,
right?
They whimper, right? If they're in pain, it's really the fact that no words come out of your mouth. So here's the what do you call that gun that they push into the cow's brain? The cattle prod.
Yeah.
So you get the cattle prod. It's interesting you're talking about that, because I had to look up in my head. I kept thinking about that. I had to look at the movie because I was thinking.
No Country for Old Men?
No. No, I was thinking of Short Circuit.
Dude, so I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
There are 3 movies that made me cry as a child. 3 movies. One was Christmas Story when his tongue got stuck on the pole. One was E.T., and one was Short Circuit when they ripped them apart. Go ahead,
That's
continue.
right. No, that's exactly it. I was just going back to the scene where they rip him apart, and he's like screaming and in pain, and he's like, Johnny Five's alive, and it's like horrible. That's what I'm saying. You get that same emotional.
Came back with a gold body. Seems like a poor compensation for that, but.
Well, first of all, that him skating through the city of New York, I think it's in New York at that point, with "I Need a Hero," and he's like bleeding fluid, and that was it's amazing the amount of emotion they were able to pack into a movie about a robot that gets brought to life by being struck by lightning. It is. You're right. As a kid, I was so invested in that story. They just had me with that story, but the thing is, part of what brings you in, part of what those writers did in terms of the genius of making you believe Johnny Five was alive, was his ability to speak and emote in very humanistic ways. So just say, if something could do it, we will imprint upon it. And I mean, and it goes to say, I mean, it's going to be very easy for a cow or a cow or sheep to do so if they could. I mean, I wish the viewers could see what Johnny Five looks like, but if you could take this, it's a very ugly robot that like has like some sort of like, I can't even describe Johnny Five at this point, but it's not a adorable kind of robot, but that's what it kind of looks like Wall-E, but a little bit more.
They definitely took Wall-E from that.
Yeah, they took Wall-E from this. Yeah. So it's Wall-E, but less cutesified. And the point is that you really start rooting for this robot, and it's all because he's able to speak. So I'm just saying, there's something.
And he starts off as a military robot. That's
why he looks the way he does, is because he's supposed to be.
God, I haven't watched that in forever. Jeez,
that's right.
Like
the first one is nowhere near as good as the second. The second, again, that whole that whole period, 88, this is 1988, that whole period, the sequels just completely outdid the originals. Anyway. Short Circuit 2, take a look at it, Johnny Five Alive, and you'll understand what we're talking about. That last scene definitely is it's a tearjerker.
Those punks. Seriously, as soon as you said Short Circuit, I had an emotional reaction. That's one that stuck with me. That's fine. I mentioned No Country for Old Men because you were talking about the cattle prod, and I thought that's where you were going.
No.
Or that air gun, whatever that is. If that's the same thing, but yeah. So let's get to this thing that I pinged you. Okay. So on my app, I have 2 apps on my phone for news. One is Reuters, one is AP. I just enjoy those outlets. And they have these sections on there, oddly enough, or odd news, whatever they call them. And this one popped up, and it was weird. So it says, this one's particularly from Reuters. It says, wearing someone else's face. Hyper-realistic masks to go on sale in Japan. And I was like, well, like how hyper-realistic? Like those baby masks or whatever? And no, they look like the masks that you would put on like a robot, like an android. And it's weird. Now, they don't obviously emote, right? They don't have like muscles, but it's a person's face. And in the weirdest way. And it's not cheap. These things are $950. $950.
40,000 yen,
yeah. So, I don't know. This just was weird. And then I got into like, this is trick facial recognition. Like, I'm just thinking about all these things. But these are normal people's faces. And so I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to understand what the use for this is. Like, who's paying $1,000 for this? So it's not even celebrities or fictional characters. Apparently, these are just like random people. Like, you or me.
They have the pores. That's how realistic they are. Like, they're showing like almost like a person. Like, they have like, if someone had like acne with craters.
It is beyond the mannequin of Elaine in Seinfeld.
Yeah, like, it's incredibly realistic.
It is real. Like an android. It's weird.
You know what? All right, let's talk about it in. Let's see some positive lights here. I can see this being used in, let's say, a burn victim, right? Let's say you wanted to reconstruct without, let's say if you weren't able to get to the level of where your face used to be, maybe you could reconstruct the way you used to look, and then you could wear a mask like this. This would be interesting. Like
a wig for someone who's currently losing their hair or something if they're going through chemo or so a burn victim. So they could. That's actually all right. So there you go. You're bringing it around. That's a good one.
I'm pretty sure because this is made in Japan. That's not what. That's not where these are going.
But dude, no one. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I don't know the cultures of every country in the world. And when I say that, I know almost none except for my own, and even ours is strange to me. So I don't know what the primary versus secondary use cases are for this type of mask. It's odd because when I think of masks, I think of Halloween or even some type of themed party. And this is of normal people. So I'm struggling to find a use case. You just named an excellent one. So is that Japan's primary or secondary, but it will be organically one of theirs? Maybe so, because that actually makes a ton of sense. They are so realistic. Maybe. And to give people the confidence to go out in public after suffering or enduring or recovering from some type of disfigurement, that is admirable, and I love that. That is great.
Yeah, but you did. I mean, in the first sentence of the story, it gets what is it here? It's described as facial camouflage, a hyper-realistic mask that models a stranger's features in 3 dimensions. So I mean,
they're normal people.
Right off the bat, it's not about like making a mask to conform to your face or the way you used to look. Like, let's say you're aging. And I don't know why you want to do this, but maybe some people would want to do this. If you're getting older, you're more insecure about it, and you want to wear a mask of your younger self, that could be interesting. I'm just saying an interesting experiment. But where this is going to get creepy, and I'm just going to put this out there, where this is going to get truly creepy is for people who have stalkers. Okay? it's going to get monumentally uncomfortable. Imagine showing
you see
up
your face.
And I was about to say, and the way it gets even creepier is you take a trip over to Japan, and because I mean, look, our likeness could be anywhere based on someone taking a picture of you on Instagram. You could just end up on the internet. Someone could just look up dark-haired American guy, and your face could just pop up, right? And
they start committing crimes with it, like Judge Dredd style. Judge Dredd style. And you're like, dude, you
just make the mask, and then and you're like halfway around the world, and then you just see your face up on Interpol. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of horribleness that could go down with
even
this.
If this is just a mask. The perpetrator was wearing a hyper-realistic mask, and they even say it, but it's still your face.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, don't destroy
and then having to explain I didn't kill 60 people.
Well, I needed to pay my taxes. Listen, 2020 was a rough spot for me, so I had to sell my likeness to this guy in Japan.
You don't have to sell it though, because I'm saying if it's in the public sphere, if it's on the internet, right? you don't own it. It's all these internet companies, social media.
Well, you need to sign a waiver to be profited upon, right? Well, when you're in a if you're in public, they blur your face out because you need to sign a waiver for that. Now, I don't know how it works with other countries. In the U.S., you need to sign a waiver, right?
I think if you're using a company like Instagram, I mean, do you?
That's different. Yeah. No, I was thinking if someone just took a photo in public and you just happened to be in it. But no, I guess if you do post it, then Instagram could sell it in a sense.
Yeah, I'm just saying or a number of different things. But can you imagine?
Now, why my head didn't go there was because I was guided by the article, which early in the article, it says this mask will go on sale for the $950 USD a piece at this guy's Tokyo shop, whose products are popular as accessories for parties and theatrical performance. So nothing altruistic about this. Or nothing, not even altruistic, he's not giving away for free. He's, selling them for $1,000 a piece. Yeah. But there was nothing about that in there. So my head didn't go there. But I think, other than the dangers of what you just said, before you said the dangers, I love the idea of allowing people that are going through some physical challenges to be able to go out in public with confidence. I like that.
Yeah. It's all well and good until I buy one and I wear it and it's you. And then you turn on the pod and I'm just wearing your face and I refuse to take it off.
I want that.
I mean, there's a lot of weirdness that could go into it. I'm just saying, can you imagine being a celebrity at a red carpet and you look out into the crowds, like the people who are just allowed to be there, and there's like 10 people who bought this mask and it's your face looking back at you? I'm just saying, there's a lot of creepiness to it. It just can feel so creepy very fast.
All right, so I'm going to move on.
Bad.
A weird one.
Wonders never cease. Body pillows, not body pillows. There's like a pillow that you create like a girlfriend pillow for yourself, and there are cafes where you could go and sit in a woman's lap and have her stroke your hair. Cat cafes. This is just another one. You'll go to a cafe where people create a mask of your face and then they just serve you as you all night long. So,
what are you talking about? I'm not following what you're saying.
I was going through a number of different.
What do you mean? You're wearing a face and they serve you as you? What are you talking about?
I'm saying Japan is famous for their many themed cafes, and I'm saying the next themed cafe will be it'll be a high-end cafe, and you'll say, "I'm coming to Japan. This is a picture of my face." And everyone will make these masks, and everyone in the cafe will be wearing that mask when you come in. I feel like it's like a narcissist fantasy.
People wear a mask. People wear a mask of their own face.
People wear a mask of their own face. It could be a number of different things. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that could go into this. I'm not going to be. My point is, I'm not going to be surprised. So, moving on.
Yeah, let's move on. That was a weird one. So I mentioned this before. Bezos's Blue Origin. So NASA greenlights Jeff Bezos's space company Blue Origin for future missions, including planetary expeditions and satellite launches. So, let me ping you this article too. So basically, NASA has granted Jeff Bezos's space company Blue Origin a launch contract for the New Glenn rocket. Under the agreement, Blue Origin's rocket could take part in Earth observation missions, planetary expeditions, and satellite launches for the agency. The contract will also allow NASA centers in the U.S. to design a spacecraft around the 310-foot New Glenn booster, which is expected to launch in 2021. So how does this compare to their relationship with SpaceX? Like, do you know it all, or have you heard anything about this?
No, this is brand new to me.
Because I've always heard of Blue Origin. I just didn't actually know what they did because they don't ever get the media play that Elon does. And I don't know if that's because they're more covert or clandestine, or if they're just not doing anything. And Elon is just super active.
Well,
but I didn't know, like,
in terms of the celebrity sphere. Yeah, probably.
But like, what do they do? I mean, what does Blue Origin do? And I say that because I've never Googled it, and I'm sure it's there to be found. But yeah, I was kind of curious. Like, well, I thought Elon was doing this stuff. So,
I mean, it's
his Starcraft was interplanetary. So, what does that mean?
I mean, it's competition, right? I mean, it's not unheard of. I mean, I think you have what do you call it? You have Boeing has some contracts, and I think you mentioned a bunch of different people. I want to say BlackRock. I'm not entirely sure if that I can't remember if BlackRock is the actual creator of missiles or like has contracts, or if that's the mercenary group that the U.S. sometimes hires out. Can't remember. Someone can fact check us on that. Point is, back to Bezos. I'm not surprised. It's interesting. I mean, the U.S. has no dog in the fight, right? They're just going to partner with whoever has the capability to do what it is that the contract needs in terms of its fulfillment. So if Bezos has a company that's able to do it, I'm not surprised. I mean, Elon has not worked for the U.S. government. There's no exclusivity with him. You mentioned that earlier, that he's a free agent. He can go to any company or organization or company or nation state with a space agency and work for them if he wanted to. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this progresses. This is the first I've heard of it, so I'm going to be interested to learn more about Blue Origin now that it's on my radar.
Yeah, I'm reading along in the article, and it says this isn't the first time that NASA chose Blue Origin. In May, NASA awarded Blue Origin, SpaceX, and Dynetics nearly $1 billion to produce initial designs for a human landing system for the Artemis 3 mission. And so that makes me think that like they work cooperatively, like collaboratively. It's hard because it's open to interpretation what that sentence actually means. And it says
they very well might, because I mean they might be working on different
components or something.
Different components of the contract, or they have different contracts. I mean, it doesn't sound like they're in direct competition with one another. It just sounds like they're able to take. I mean, look. There's no way that SpaceX can take every single contract that has to do with space. It's just they just can't be big enough. There's just no way to have that kind of size and influence. So I mean, it makes sense. It stands to reason that there will be other players in the space that are able to siphon off a couple of contracts here and there. Because if we were always, I mean, if there was a point where we're wholly dependent on Elon, I mean that is the dystopian future of our nightmares. So. This is if anything, this is good. It's good to know that there are other players in this space. So,
yeah,
and it's just another deranged billionaire.
Yeah, it says that Blue Origin is competing against these companies, so those companies that I named, to land NASA astronauts and possibly the first woman on the moon in 2024. And yeah,
so it's sad. We've never landed a woman on the moon. Are you serious?
I don't know the last time we went back to the moon.
That's fair. That's sad, man.
Yeah, I mean, but not that it's fair, but to be fair, I actually don't know the last time we went to the moon. It may have been quite some time.
We just had so many female astronauts. I'm just surprised that not one of them has stepped foot on the moon. But yeah, you're right. To be fair, when's the last time we were there? So.
Yeah. I'm just trying to comb through this article to see. Yeah, I don't know if there's. Yeah, I was trying to see like what the competition there is, because there is a difference. It seems like SpaceX, they're thinking is more low Earth orbit type rockets, at least for now. I guess they're still working on that Starship, whereas Blue Origin is interplanetary at this point. Under contract, NASA centers in the U.S. will design a spacecraft. No, I just read that. Sorry.
Can we talk about how you missed this headline, which is on the bottom of the article? Jeff Bezos just issued a rare compliment to his chief space rival, Elon Musk. It's the latest development in a 15-year feud between two of the world's most powerful CEOs.
Oh, I saw the compliment before where he was like, congrats, anyone who's in this business knows it isn't easy type thing. I had no idea they were actually feuding.
Me either. I mean, this is Business Insider, so, yeah.
I mean, it sounds pretty sensational.
It does, but I'm just saying that that might answer our question here. Looks like they're not incredibly they're not some symbiotic relationship where I'll take this contract, you take this contract, I'll take that contract, you take this contract. It seems like they've been trying to ice each other. But hey, I'm all for the corporate wars. I'll mention that once every 3 podcasts. So
this paragraph, the New Glenn rocket is a 310-foot reusable booster expected to be launched in 2021. It's designed to lift 45 tons into low orbit as compared to SpaceX Falcon Heavy Lift can lift 70 tons into low Earth orbit. So I completely got what I just said wrong. But it looks like this Blue Origin does less than SpaceX. I have no idea what's going on here. So there needs to be more...
Why don't we just do a follow-up? Let's
more follow-up here.
Blue Origin. I mean, let's add it into our feed so we can learn something about it. I mean, that's why we made this podcast, is so that we could explore and learn new things and then talk about it and share what's interesting to the one guy who listens to us as he jet sets around the world. So for that one guy,
don't diminish our listenership. There's plenty.
This one's for you.
It's hearkening back to an earlier comment where we have listeners from all over the world, and Antoine made a joke that it's probably a pilot or something that is just tuning in as he lands and is waiting for his layover.
Time zone to time zone. Yeah.
Don't disparage our listeners.
Anyway, yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how many more you want. This is an interesting one. Actually, I didn't bring up the fun one from last time. All right, I had one more thing that I wanted to cover, or that I thought we had time for, but I'm not sure if you want to cover it.
No, let's always leave them wanting. Isn't that what the famous adage is? Let that just simmer for the listeners. So
is that one of those quotes that is it's always a quote and then it says unknown and
yes.
It's just BS because correct. Someone just said it yesterday and you're like, dude, this isn't some philosophical quote. This is something you said and you attributed it to an unknown philosopher. And this is so modern day.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like ancient wisdom at all.
Yeah. Like Marcus Aurelius once said. Always leave him wanting.
Always leave him wanting. Apostrophe IN. Which again, apostrophe IN is still 3 characters. Why not just say ING? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I'll have to look into
not saving anyone any time there.
Anyway, Jamie, where can they find us?
And find us at Retraction Twitter. Hit us up.
Nice. I feel like there was one more, but there probably isn't. Retraction out.